This is amazing. You got to see it. The president of Turkey, Erdogan, is urging Palestinians to swarm the Temple Mount, talking about they're going to Judaize it. This is sad. Take a look. I don't know if you know this, but the president of Turkey, his name is Erdogan, and prophetically we were saying ahead of time on VFN TV about, this guy's setting himself up for a new caliphate.
Oh yeah. And
if you know the history of that area, Turkey was a primary core part of that, but they just voted by like 52% of their population, voted him in with all these huge powers, that now he's able to do things that,
Well, he had some help. I mean, he helped himself last year with the Night of Long Knives. There was an attempted coup on his
which was a farce, you know, purportedly a farce, and it was bad. Remember that?
It was very
Tanks in the
bad.
street.
Oh yeah, and so now he's reelected.
Right, and he mysteriously came up in the basement with one news camera on him, acting like he was hiding out and stuff. I mean, how'd you get this camera?
Yeah.
And he talked his way through. I mean, it was Night of Long Knives when you think about it, just like it was for Hitler and Germany and that type of thing. And a caliphate is an Islamic government where Islam is a mixture of religion and politics and government, and it's all about, it's a political religion.
Yeah.
And it sees itself as to be over everything.
World domination, really.
World domination. And so you're looking at, this man and our previous President
Obama.
Yeah, I remember Obama. He gave Erdogan the what's it called, the iron missile defense?
It's like a shield, right?
The missile shield, the iron shield, so that they could be protected from any attacks coming toward Turkey. And now we're looking at, you're seeing Erdogan here, but they're reporting it's called the Iron Dome. So it's called the Iron Dome.
Israel has the Iron Dome, I believe.
No, but they gave it also to Turkey. They gave it to Turkey as well, and so we'll verify that. But they have a missile defense system to be able to protect their nation, and as they're rising up to potentially be, it looks like a caliphate. Well, he's standing up now of all the things. Now that he just voted himself into power, basically, and got everybody to buy into it, he is setting us up as an enemy of God, of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, an enemy of Jerusalem. And this is the reunification moment where we're celebrating 50 years. 50 years since 1967 war, where Jerusalem's been a part of where it's supposed to be. And he's telling everybody to flood the Temple Mount. You see the Dome of the Rock. You probably can see it right here. You see that that is the temple foundation where God's presence came and dwelt. And at the very top right there, you see that gold dome. That is an Islamic mosque, and that's where they've taken over that land, and they're claiming it to be theirs. And he's saying to have Muslims just flood that place. At the 50th year anniversary of Jerusalem being unification of Jerusalem coming into Israel, when they're celebrating.
Yeah, reportedly that mosque, the Aqsa Mosque, is actually built on top of the Holies of Holies.
Yeah. And
reportedly when at the end of the Six-Day War, when they retook Jerusalem, one report was that the IDF soldiers wanted to take over the
Israeli defense soldiers. Yeah.
Correct. They wanted to take over the mosque. They actually stuck an Israeli flag. Reports are, and the general said, "Pull that down. We're not going to go. We're not going to do that."
Right.
If the Israelites, the Jews, wanted to take over the mosque, they could have done that already.
They took over Jordan, and
they could have easily taken. But they said, we don't want to do that. We don't want to stir anything up. And so they've always been
for peace.
Yes,
they're for peace and for everybody to be peacefully practice their faith. But now you're talking about here, they're celebrating 50 years. Think about it, 50 years they're celebrating of Jerusalem having to take Jerusalem because
they were attacked.
It was prophetically in God's calendar, but also they were attacked and had to take it. Because anything past 1967 borders prior to that, they couldn't defend it. It's undefensible borders. There's no way to defend themselves. That's why you hear people say, we need to go back. Well, you hear the enemies of Israel say, we need to go back to the 1967 borders. That's just another way of saying, we take them there, then we take them out, and we push them into the sea. And they're not going to give it up.
It's another way of saying, we should go back to the place you were before we just decided to beat you up. Let's just go back to that place.
Right, and it's not going to happen. As a matter of fact, so he's talking about flooding the Temple Mount right here, flooding it with Muslims on the day that the Jews are celebrating the unification of Jerusalem coming in part of Israel. What does this article say now?
It says Turkish President Erdogan called on Arabs to ascend the Temple Mount in droves to protect the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Which is that dome thing you're looking at.
Right. He also warned that against Israeli attempts to Judaize Jerusalem.
He's like, they're going to Judaize it. They're Jews.
Hello?
It's theirs. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, but that, he's talking about, literally.
It's a false narrative.
What's a racist narrative?
Yeah.
It's a racist,
Yep.
it's racism towards Jews.
Yep.
They call it anti-Semitism, but a lot of people don't think about that as
They don't
racism.
connect it, correct.
It's racism towards Jews. And so he said, we don't want that race being here. And it's like, it's theirs.
They belong there.
It's theirs.
Yeah.
Jerusalem, right? Jerusalem. Okay, go on. All right.
This is at the International Forum on the Al-Quds Monday. Erdogan told participants that every day under Israeli occupation is an insult to Muslims. Muslims refer to Jerusalem as Al-Quds.
This is important because, understand, he just lifted himself up to a place of potentially being a dictator, on his way to being a dictator in Turkey, to Islam being the primary religion of Turkey, trying to press that in, which was, part of that was a free place, that you could be any faith in Turkey. If you were in Jerusalem for a period of time, you would go to Turkey to renew your passport to be able to come back in again. That's how free it was at that time. But now, we saw, our former president, President Obama, said that this is one of his best friends was Erdogan, and he was promoting this whole narrative, and now he was escalated to this place, and he comes right after Jerusalem, and he says, it's an insult to all Muslims everywhere. This is what this president of Turkey is saying, for the Jews to be able to have their own land. So this stuff about, how many people, John, though, are trying to sympathize with people that are hating people. They're filled with anger and rage.
It happens all the time. And I believe later in this article he talks about, that Israel's trying to practice apartheid, and part of the BDS movement, the boycott, divest, sanction movement. It's all about
ridiculous, which is the opposite. Matter of fact, I hope we're going to get today to the interviews from the street of what's really taking place in Israel. Let's move on. What's this article?
It says, we as Muslims should be visiting Al-Quds or Jerusalem more often, he said. Each day that Jerusalem is under occupation is an insult to us. He didn't stop there.
It's not under occupation, by the way.
Yeah, it's theirs. He likened Israel's treatment of Arabs to South Africa under apartheid. He announced that the Knesset's pending legislation aimed at lowering loudspeakers from the mosque as an infringement on Muslims' religious freedom, saying he would not allow it.
And if you've ever been to Israel, it's like, can you turn that thing down?
Please turn it down.
You go in there, you're going to look, this is where Jesus walked, this is where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that's you hear, wah!
Yeah, please turn it down.
They're so loud.
It is loud.
You can't even think, and that's what they want. It just shows you, like, if it's true, then why do you have to be so manipulating? Why do you have to be so loud? Why do you have to constantly repeat things? Because truth doesn't need those things. Truth is truth.
And spiritually, you're talking about what's being broadcast over the air.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
5 times a day. They're called to prayer 5 times a day. Okay.
He also warned President Trump not to move the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
But that's about to happen.
It's about to happen. And
he's prophesying. He has no idea that he's prophesying.
I just don't think the president of Turkey should be advising the president of the United States or warning the president of the United States on what he should be doing. But
I don't think our president's that worried about that.
I don't think he is either.
Yeah, but he's speaking to 1 billion potential Muslims that are listening to him during this time, especially if they pushed out a false narrative of what they call a false caliphate that looks real bad. Then all of a sudden he comes in with this nice caliphate, and people say that's the right one. Because there are people who are looking, if they're Islamic, they're looking for the caliphate at some point.
Because ISIS is trying to push one out of a caliphate as well.
Exactly.
But they're doing it, trying to, blatantly
they're doing it exactly
heads.
like the Quran says do it, Okay.
So Erdogan told Palestinian Authority Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah that Muslims must unite to protect Israeli attempts to Judaize Jerusalem. Israeli President Rivlin responded to Erdogan's remarks during a meeting in Jerusalem with Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, and he said that under Israeli sovereignty, we will continue to build Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people.
Look at this. The mayor also said, he said the connection of the Jewish people with Jerusalem dates back more than 3,000 years, which is before Islam was even created, when you think about it. And he said Jerusalem is and will remain our eternal, united capital forever. Prophetically, once she's established, it's not going to go away. God is going to keep it there. Yeah. And of course, this is the 50-year celebration that's coming up with the reunification of Jerusalem, and even invited Erdogan to come on down and take a look at it,
I don't think that's going to happen.
No. But I know this. I know that the biggest thing that they're saying in this article and what we prophesied about, Gary Lane is saying in the CBN article, is that the Turkish president may now view himself as a chosen successor of the revived Ottoman Empire, the Sultan of the new Islamic Caliphate. And if you look back to World War I, that was all Islamic Caliphate. I mean, it was everywhere. But they lost, they picked the wrong side. They picked the losing side during World War I, so they had to give up their land, and that's where you had Jordan got cut off and created, and you had Iraq got created, and Turkey got created, and so they started cutting up the land, and we did a program on that, just kind of explaining it. And so they're wanting to get that back. When you hear things like ISIL and the Levant and things of that nature, they're talking about.
That's what the Yale stands for, and the ISIL, the Levant.
Yeah, the Levant, which is Jerusalem's part of that, and their ideas and their concepts.
And our president really was, previous administration was actually prophesying by continuing to call them ISIL because they were in the process of trying to get the Levant. So they were ISIS, not ISIL, but he wanted to continue he wanted to continue to say that.
Thank you for watching VFN TV. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Also, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. You know, a lot of people want to abide with the Lord, but they just don't have a plan to do it. You can request that plan today at iabide.org. Don't forget you can join us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download our app and sign up for our newsletter, The Torch, at vfntv.com.